Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the work session of March 2nd, 2023. I'm just going to ask, when we are speaking today, whoever does want to speak, please state your name and your affiliation with your town board or your library board or trustees. And speak, please, if we can clearly try our best to speak into the mics so that everybody can hear what everyone has to say. Okay? Is the mics on? Or is the pressing? All right, so we'll start the meeting now. Let's see with our attorney, town attorney, Joe McKay. Yeah, can I make a motion to open the meeting first?
Make a motion.
Second, Mike. Okay, and we got that.
All right, so I did have an opportunity to speak with Attorney Pettigrew today, briefly, but it was pretty constructive. I think that Dan and I have a good conceptual understanding of what we'd like to do or what can be done to move forward on a lot of the issues that we've addressed. We have not had any substantial communication since the last time we met. So knowing that, I have some suggestions. Oh, by the way, I know that there was an email, I think it was from February 5th or so, from Ms. Schmidt. I know that I was copied on the email. I received it yesterday when some other documents were circulated. I see my name on your email. I checked my deleted items, my junk mail, checked everything. So before you leave, I want to make sure you have my correct email address.
Sure.
Because then I was also concerned if anybody emailed me in response to her comments, I didn't get those either. So I just want everybody to know that, because I know you tried to send a recap of the last meeting. So I want to be clear that I didn't get that, all right? So I'll talk to you about that. So I believe that there's a consensus, both from the town board, perhaps in the library board. I don't want to speak out of turn for the library board, and I think generally with Mr. Pettigrew, that we should have an IMA between the boards, an intermunicipal agreement, that delineates and explains and just clearly sets forth, pretty simply, who's going to do what. In other words, how we're all going to work together going forward. I would just suggest that that if the library board can provide us, if Mr. Pettigrew can provide us with a draft IMA, say 30 days, that lays out some of the things that were on the agenda, the past agenda, things like the benefits administration and payroll, which I know it's the library's position that the town continue to do, whether or not there are going to be file transfers, whether there's going to be any building maintenance, etc. Again, going back to the items that were on our agenda from the last meeting. We also have the issue concerning the security cameras in the Cornell branch. At one point in time, we were really trying to have an IMA between the two boards concerning installation of cameras in the library's building. So again, with respect to the Cornell branch, I would ask that, again, if the library wants to propose additional language concerning the installation of the security cameras. And I say that understanding clearly that Mr. Pettigrew's position is that he wanted to have a completed IMA with respect to the Rushmore branch before we went on to that issue. So going back to the Rushmore branch for a second, as I said, there was an email that did go around summarizing the last meeting. I didn't see any responsive comments from any other library board members or even any town board members. ask my own board to get me any written comments that you have, either with respect to whatever you think should be proposed in the overall IMA or in the camera IMAs. Please get those to me. I'll make Dan aware of those, so as best he can incorporate those things into either an amended IMA, because you have the last draft, Dan, with respect to the cameras, and or into the global IMA concerning, the delineating the relationship between the boards. And one other thing, and this is really a request for Dan, to bring the boards up to speed a little bit. I've had some communications with Mr. Wilson, who's the union attorney for UPSI, and I know Dan has had some discussions with him as well. And based upon some training that we received at the Association of Towns last week, happened to be an attorney's CLE, continuing legal education class, which coincidentally was a class on municipal libraries. I've been going there for about 15 years. It's the first time I've seen that, but they had it, so I made sure I was there. And Brandon was there with me. So we did have a discussion. I emailed my board a brief synopsis of some discussions we had with the attorney that gave the lecture. Dan, if you can, I know you've been in contact with Mr. Wilson. He had indicated to me in an email that he was looking to have some kind of stipulation, was his word, concerning how the negotiations with UPSI were going to move forward. Not to be oblique about it, he's asked the town supervisor to start the negotiations. And I had sent Mr. Wilson some case law and opinions which indicated that the library employees should likely have their own bargaining unit. And I think you kind of agree with me on that, or at least it's an option, right? You don't have to agree. Don't go out on a limb and agree with anything I say right now. Take it under advisement, and it's something we can discuss. But again, I do want to get back to Mr. Wilson in some way. Maybe the three of us can have a call, because I don't want him to be putting pressure, might be the wrong word, but I don't want him asking my supervisor to start negotiations when I don't really know what the stipulation is, and I don't know if you're going to advise your board to have their own unit, and that question really may be up to those people within the unit and not the board. So they're right. So we have those issues. So if we can maybe have a call with Mr. Wilson, I would appreciate that. That's all I have to say.
Is this on? Okay. I'll go backwards with respect to, first of all, again, thank you to the town board members and the supervisor for having this. I think the library board wants to, have very constructive discussions with the town board to make sure that its relationship, which has been very long-standing, is sort of delineated in clear, unambiguous terms. I think that's very, very important, and hopefully will allay some of the concerns that various members of both boards may have had expressed over the last period of several months. I did have a conversation with Mr. Wilson. He had actually reached out to me and shared that I think he had some concerns. He asked for some information from me as to the organizational status of the library, which I did share with him. Kind of go back in time, which that we are a separate chartered institution by the Board of Regents, a separate corporate body with a governing board of trustees. But under the charter, the trustees are appointed by the town board. But I did also indicate to him that under the New York State education law that we would consider ourselves as having the power to appoint personnel, and that recently the Orange County Department of Personnel had sent a letter to both yourself and myself, kind of confirming that they're fine with the library acting as the appointing authority, and he just asked simply that I confirm that this information, which I have provided to him, I'm happy to have a joint phone call with him. I think as we explained last time, if the library employees wish to be recognized as a separate unit, we're prepared to do it. That's a decision that they have to make, and if they want Mr. Wilson's office to represent them in those discussions, we will certainly entertain that when that request is made, and hopefully that will be done in a short period of time, because I know that that your current collective bargaining agreement is expired, and you want to get going with your negotiations. I'm sure your employees want that clarification, and I'm sure you as an entity would like to make sure that gets done. So I will work to see that is done as quickly as we can, Mr. McKenna.
Thank you, Dan. And of course, my point is, I'm not regular labor counsel for the town. I don't want the town to be in a position where there's some allegation of an unfair labor practice, where we refuse to negotiate or not timely accepted negotiation. That's a primary concern of mine. So I appreciate that.
Okay. As far as the MOA, we are certainly looking forward to responses on the revised language that we had submitted with regard to Rushmore. Kind of just to clarify about the access to the cameras. We understand the town's concern and the police department's concern about safety. We agree with that. And I thought I had drafted some. Hopefully, you'll find that the provisions are okay. If you have any additions or amendments you want, I will certainly review that with the library board in a expeditious manner to get that thing resolved. But I think it's important that the library board would like to make sure that agreement, at least that there's an agreement in place about the camera recordings and access, because that those cameras are already installed. And we would certainly work on preparing an MOA to address the installation of cameras at the Cornell branch. And as for the global, as far as the global MOA and municipal agreement, I think as you and I have spoke in the past, I think that would be in the best interest of both entities, so that these relationships are defined. I think the library's main concern is that we would like things for 2023 to continue in place as they were, and that this MOA would then deal with things prospectively going forward as far as the relationship. So I will work to see what I can do I will speak to the library board and to the director about what kind of topics need to be addressed in this global MOA. I think a number of the items on your agenda could certainly fall within that, as far as responsibilities for payroll benefits, the maintenance of the building at Central Valley, which I think we've spoken about, that the library board has title to, a memorialization or a lease to confirm that since we have the library's exclusive use and occupancy of that portion of the town building that where the Rushmore branch operates out of, that get done as quick an expeditious a process as possible.
Can I ask a question? Brandon Corley, Town Board. Has anyone reached out to any of the representatives from the union and library about what they want to do? Are they have been discussed? Have they been given an option of what then brought up to date on what's going on with the contract negotiations? Yeah, the staff. Yeah, because I think Debbie's the shop steward over there.
Yeah, they're aware that they have, a decision.
Okay.
So.
I just wanted to make sure that there is communication going back and forth.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
absolutely.
it's my belief that this particular part of the agenda is the easiest to rectify.
Mm.
You simply take the language that's in the current contract and you move it to a separate contract and they become their own union. This is what we discussed at the last work session. So I just wanted to make sure that the employees over there are not freaking out, you know, or that they understand that there is a process, and hopefully that there's some communication coming from the union to the union representative. I guess in this case would be Debbie, that's the only one I've been mentioned is the shop steward. So I just wanted to make sure that the employees over there are aware of the process that's going on.
Right, yeah.
They are.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know about communication between the staff and the union because I'm not involved in
Mhm.
that. But, I mean, the staff do know that, you know, whatever they decide, that we will honor that,
Okay.
so.
No, but I think the question is that are they aware?
Yeah.
Are the employees, do they know that they're faced with this option possibly of,
Yeah.
they were told and explained this?
Yes?
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
but
we
we
told.
can't.
No,
It's a
you
very
can't do
fine
anything.
line.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can't dictate to what, we don't wanna create anything,
They
concern
know
or.
the
or
contract
confusion.
My concern is, because obviously you cannot communicate with them in that space, like, be seen as tampering or whatever, and we can't really do anything, so I just wanted to make sure that they understand that there's a process and that there's some form of communication. If there isn't, that maybe Mr. Wilson could reach out to somebody over there and just let them know so that I wanna make sure that they understand that there's something that they're being taken care
Well,
of.
let me just say this, so
Yeah.
what I think I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
because, when I spoke with some of the staff, like you said, they're being told, they're telling us that their information that they would like to receive, they're being told by the director or by their trustees that they can't discuss it at this time. They're not allowed to really discuss anything that's going on because of the legal matters.
Okay.
So,
I think it would be helpful to them if at least someone from UPSI
Yeah,
could
so,
reach out to.
Councilman, what I can do, is I will, reach out to Mr. Wilson tomorrow, explain to him that there was a joint session,
Just a
of
phone
both
call,
boards.
that's all.
And I will say that the concern expressed is that the employees of the library, that he reach out to them specifically to kind of explain that. And
Is there any other union representatives besides Debbie in the library?
Not that, I don't think so.
Okay, so then Debbie would be the point of contact, and I'm sure we can get her contact information for Mr. Wilson to give to him, so he can reach out to her.
sure, I'll ask, the library director for that.
Okay,
And I
thank you.
think too, for, as far as the union, they know the contract, the date that it expired,
Mm-hmm,
and they know that we cannot discuss it either way, for, against, anything.
mm-hmm,
They just know that we support, and they know that they have to go to the next person above, Debbie has to go to the next person.
yes.
And that's where we've had to stop,
Okay.
all discussions stopped there, just that they know that this is the date that it ended.
I just don't want them in the dark.
Yeah.
Us
Yeah.
neither, but
so,
we
but
can't,
at this time they are,
Okay.
because they're like you said, right now it's on hold,
Mm-hmm,
yes.
okay,
well, they may not be, they just may not have shared with us what they discussed, because they
Yeah.
can't, we can't be a part of that conversation, so
Okay.
they may not be in the dark.
They're not, well, not, if any information they've received, it's not coming from.
I understand. I
Yes,
just,
yeah.
I wanna make sure that the union is reaching out to at least Debbie and talking with her, but we'll leave that up to them. All right, thank you.
All right, anybody else have anything they'd like to discuss, questions they may have? You can go around the room.
If I, sorry,
Just
if I
state your
could just-
name and your
Sure.
affiliation.
I'm Sarah Johnson, I'm the library director. So I guess, one thing that, we'd like to talk about, is the security camera MOA. So, you know, we wanted to know if anyone had any, anything that they wanted to discuss about it, anything that they wanted changed, just so that we can try to move forward on that.
Yeah. And actually, one of the points I was making earlier on is, and I actually recirculated that last draft of Dan's IMA today. So, in the first instance, if my board can get back to me, I'll provide some further comments to Mr. Pettit
Okay.
on the camera.
Okay.
Can I just, Kathy Schmidt, library board president. I think there might be some confusion because the library board does not want one MOA for two libraries. We want one MOA for one library, one MOA for another library. Because these have been in for about 5 months already, so we can't wait. This is long overdue, and I did check, the town police department, nobody has a video surveillance policy on record. So there's a lot of cameras in this town and no policy. So we can't even have one on file to have for the patrons coming in.
Well, we have, like, the library.
We have
has-
ours,
yeah.
but not for all the other cameras, so.
And then I guess the other thing that I'd just like to bring up to discuss, and I'm assuming this will also be part of the IMA, but the, like, I guess broad IMA, but since it'll probably take a little while for that to, be negotiated, I just wanted to discuss, the services right now that the town provides to the library, such as payroll, bookkeeping, building maintenance, those are really the big three. So, you know, I guess, you know, we're hoping that at least through the end of 2023 that this town board will agree to continue those services for us. Obviously, since, you know, before we created our budget for 2023, we, you know, we're assuming that those things would continue to be covered by the town, so we don't have, you know, them in our budget. But so I guess we just wanted to have a discussion about the continuation of those services at least until the end of the year. And then, you know, if you all wanted to change it, I mean, I feel like if it's working okay, why change it? It's, you know, generally, but that, you know, definitely at least through the end of this year that we would be covered with those things.
Well, I believe that is what the presentation, how we started the presentation, coming from our attorney, Joe McKay. These are the questions that we want to have answered. That we're waiting responses from both boards, how to move forward. And we're hoping within the next 6 days, 60 days, we would have a consensus and we'll have a discussion.
So is that for the entire overarching IMA you wanna have in 60 days, or
No,
just these things?
What you just brought up.
Okay.
And that was, those items that were just brought up
Mhm.
were as part of the initial presentation.
Right.
And anything else that is also here, I guess we'll have up for discussion after 60 days when the responses are given.
Sorry, I'm just a little
I think-
confused.
I
There will be
think the
responses for that?
I think the
Basically
library's
says, get us
concern
through
is that
2023.
while we're going
That's
through
what
the
you said.
negotiations.
That's
Yes,
not
you
what
said,
the-
of course.
That's not what
That-
the
so we
board
gave
said.
ours,
Right.
yes.
And we voted at the meeting, be you to have something done in 90 days.
No, I
No,
think, I
it's
think
Yes,
we,
no, no,
90.
Tim,
90 days.
myself and
90?
Tom,
Okay.
90 days.
90
You
days.
can
to
go
have a
back and-
discussion as to how to go forward with it.
Well, no, to
Well,
basically
to have a
have it
plan.
in the
Right,
process,
plan,
in the
but not-
process.
Yeah, have something solidified within 90 days to figure out who's doing what, who's paying what.
Right,
I
just
think it
a
was
plan,
essentially
but
to
it's not to
maintain
change
the status
anything, it's
quo.
all of us.
Is that
I believe that's
For
what
90
town
days.
meeting-
For 90 days.
Yeah.
Right, so we're 30 days in. So I had suggested a draft in 30 days, and certainly if everybody is close and we're negotiating,
Right.
you know, town's not gonna pull the rug out from anyone, so.
No. But if we make it too long, then it just keeps going on.
But you guys actually have the funds in your budget. You guys have budgeted for all that through 2023. We have not. So our recap specifically says, almost a month ago, get us through 2023. Let us know that we get through 2023. Your budget supports it, and we'll do our budget and include it for 2024.
Well, yeah, our 90-day window wasn't for you guys to have everything figured out in 90 days, was to
Okay.
figure out who's doing what
Right.
within.
So that was our,
If we
our
decided that they
input
were still
was,
paying whatever,
let
or
us
we
do our
were still
budget
paying
and
whatever,
focus.
we had
You
to
guys
figure out what
budgeted for
it was
this.
in 90 days.
the insurance.
Status
payroll,
quo wouldn't
bookkeeping.
continue after 90 days.
In the meantime, are you guys exploring the services that you're gonna need?
Well, I think that's what we're trying to figure out, you know, because if the intention is to continue these services, then we can just continue as we have been, you know, but if the intention is to not, then we do have to, start figuring things. I mean, that's why I'm asking, will they continue through the end of the year? But I guess kind of what I'm understanding now is that you're saying that we'll decide at the end of 90 days if things will continue through the end of 2023.
No, I think it
We
is,
gave our part.
if you
That
look
was
at
what
it
we want.
in the next
In our report.
90 days and you put your plans together, there may be some responsibilities that you will see as you look into all this and say, you know what, we could actually take this over.
Well, I mean, we could
You
take,
won't know until you start that process.
right. Well, technically we could take over any of those things, right? But the point
You
is
guys
that
budgeted
like,
for it.
I think the point is that the reason why it was set up this way is because it benefits the taxpayers that, we're not doubling services, right? So like if the town is paying for a payroll service and also the library is paying
You
for a
pay per
payroll
person.
service, then, right, okay. Then you also, then there'll be overlap, right? And the same thing for bookkeeping, right? So like if, the town right now, like you have a bunch of full-time bookkeepers, like we don't have any bookkeepers. So we would have to hire somebody to do that, which would, cost more tax money, and then I'm assuming you would keep the same number of bookkeepers you have. So there would be overlap there, So, and I guess that's why, at least I see why the library in town originally set it up this way, because it benefited the taxpayer that these services would be shared. And it seems like it still does, benefit the taxpayer for the services to be shared, so, yeah. We would like them to be shared.
So Kate Luciani, Library Town Councilwoman. So I agree with Sarah, and I've said it many times in the meetings, and I said it at the last work session, and I even, spoke to our attorney about passing a resolution to keep it, the way that it is for 2023. We can have these conversations, we can have these work sessions going forward. How's it gonna benefit the taxpayer? Is it gonna benefit the taxpayer to then you guys go do your own thing, have your own payroll, or is it gonna benefit the taxpayer to stay under the town, have the town cover it? That's what we should be bringing, and I feel like we should be bringing it to the community too. We're involved, but also the community needs to know, the taxpayers need to know. If this is gonna create, tax revenues going up and, people paying more for their taxes, like, what's gonna benefit, So that's why I think it's important that we are sitting at the table and we're all talking and having this discussion. I was under the impression that after 90 days, you guys are taking over. I was under the impression that we're gonna do 90 days of work together and figure out how this is gonna work, what's gonna be best, and what's the best step for us all to take,
That sounds great.
that was my impression, so if I was mistaken, but I
I was
mean,
too.
that's how I feel, I'm a single mom, 5 kids. I don't want my taxes going up because we can't sit down and have a discussion, about what's best for us and taxpayers, so.
Well, first of all, you guys already budgeted for it, so
Right.
it would be silly to change it in the middle of 2023. Your budget already supports the building insurance, the bookkeeping, and all the stuff you're paying is library funds, other than the building insurance and the bookkeepers. Library pays for everything else, you're just cutting the checks, so, library funds.
No,
You
thank
guys
you.
are-
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
thank you for clarifying that, cause I think, that sounds great. So,
That was the impression I got.
yeah.
Tyler, do you have any-
That was not my understanding when we passed that, but I think you need to investigate what it would, it's 20 checks a month, with Quicken takes about 15 minutes. Payroll for 12 people, I did it myself, that takes about 15 minutes a week.
Yeah, it's mainly the
So, I
bookkeeping.
mean, what?
It's mainly bookkeeping that would cost.
Well, the Quicken program, when you write your checks, it takes care of your bookkeeping. I don't know, there's not some magical thing to bookkeeping, and you have
You're
a lot
saying
of
it's
staff there
just
that's.
software
Right.
basically. Kids do
You
it.
have a lot of staff there that when you're not busy, they can certainly,
Civil service. will
Right,
let
so
them.
for a library, typically if a library is going to, have someone in-house do that, we would need to pay a bookkeeper. And so we would need to like contract with somebody to come in and do that.
Civil service will not permit a
Yeah.
librarian to do payroll.
And, well, I could do payroll, cause like Tyler said, like it is, like,
It's
I've done it before, but.
It's a pretty simple.
Yeah, yeah, but, you know, bookkeeping, that would be overlap, you know, because, you know, if we're doing our own bookkeeping, that means that your staff here don't have to be doing it, right? But, you know, I'm assuming you would be keeping the same number of staff, but then we'd have to add somebody, you know, so we would need an additional staff person in order to do that.
There's some other individuals here that we haven't heard from. Is there anybody else that has anything they'd like to say at this time? Alright, so the way I'm seeing it right now also is that we had discussed at the last board meeting that it would be in 90 days, there would be some decisions that were, dates or some times that would be discussed, that would be formulated, and hopefully with this discussion tonight, we're gonna have that moving forward. We're gonna have made decisions, we're gonna get feedback from everyone, and we'll see where we're gonna go from there.
But I think our position in the recap is clear, that we did not budget for this in 2023. If you guys decide in 2024 that you do not wanna support the library, and that we have to go on our own on that, then let us budget for that beginning in January 2024. Since your budget already has everything in place, bookkeeping, building insurance.
So what you're saying is that for all intents and purposes, you'd like to everything stays status
Sure.
quo for the year,
2023,
no
that's exactly
changes,
how it's
no
budgeted,
change,
of
no
course.
decisions,
But our recap
nothing
says that.
changes,
Mhm.
nothing
Yes.
changes.
Yes, exactly right.
That's
Same
what-
as it was
So you don't even
prior
have to
the year.
wait for an input.
No, let me finish,
Yeah.
let me finish, I get what you're trying to say too, I'm just trying to get a full understanding, just trying to get a full, it's like that, I don't know what that means doing that, but with a full understanding, that's all, okay? Right, so that means we're gonna stay the way everything is, no changes, we're gonna have, in 90 days, hopefully, we'll all have returned all our information to both attorneys, they can formulate it, and we can then look at a plan that we're gonna see for the fruition of 23, moving into 24, is that what I'm saying, am I correct saying
No,
that?
that's not what I just said.
What-
I just said we
what-
stay the same
Oh, boy.
through.
Alright, we don't want, I didn't want to
2023.
get into that type of a discussion or an argument or anything like that, that's not what we're here for.
No.
We're looking to come to an agreement and a resolution, that's it. Do you-
I don't know if
hold
that's
on, before we say
necessarily
this,
an
Joe,
argument.
No?
you want, I'm not looking for an argument, I'm not looking for a
Clarification?
discussion, but I just wanna be in agreement,
Let
that's
her,
all.
let her clarify what she's trying to, cause
That's
now,
we have,
there-
That's not what I said at all. I said, let's stay the same through all of 2023. That's our answer, that's our request, so in 90
understood
days,
that that's your
it's gonna be the
position,
same.
absolutely.
so we're not gonna
Absolutely.
come back in 90 days with anything new. That is our hope, our wish to stay the same, at least through
That's
2023.
Very, very clear, very, very
Also
clear, very clear. It's also very clear that the town board voted to stay everything for 90 days, nothing's gonna change for 90 days. We're gonna try to have some 30-day timeframes in here for both boards and trustees, town trustees, library trustees, to get the attorneys the information. I promise you, this is a priority for me, and I'm sure it is for Dan, to try to move past these issues and get some agreements in place.
So can I ask a question for clarification purposes for myself? So is what you had just said and the other board members here, are you all saying that after 90 days you would like things to change, like for us to come up with something, things to change, or are we talking about keeping it as speaking during the 90 days and going from there and changing next year? Because I'm getting confused about the two different conversations that are happening right now, and I think as a board, we need to say what we want all together, there are 5 of us sitting here, and say, are we keeping it, like Kat said, through 2023, and within these 90 days, coming up with the best plan going forward for 2024, and then to go forward from there. I was not under the assumption that in 90 days things are gonna change, and for 2023, you guys are gonna go on your own or whatever. That wasn't the impression, so I just wanna be very, very clear for myself, for my understanding, and the board members here. Which one are we saying? Are we saying that everything's gonna change in 90 days upon us, you know, and the board figuring out things in 2023? Or are we going to focus on keeping things the same for 2023 looking towards 2024 for things to change.
I believe that's what, when we initially started this meeting and brought this information up and asked for information to be received within 90 days, we would then have this information, absorb it, and then we would have that decision made in 90 days for what we would do for the remainder of the year. Maybe there are decisions that, when we're doing all our research and coming to our conclusions, there may be decisions that could be made within 90 days, possibly. We won't know until everything is completed. Our attorney has asked everyone to go back and look at everything and give our responses to him and to Mr. Pettigrew. So between both of them, they get all that information, and then in 90 days, when it's there and we have it, then we go forward for the remainder of 23.
I just feel
That's
it's a
how
lot.
I felt. That's how I felt it was.
I just feel it's a lot of work. Like, we're gonna have to work on everybody together working for a plan for 2024, and that's a lot of work in itself to figure out what's the best option. And I feel like within 90 days to come up with this work and then come up with a plan like, okay, you're doing this or we're doing that. It's a lot of work. I think it's a lot of work to put people through, and, you know, like I had requested the last time when I spoke with our attorney to, you know, pass a resolution and keep it status quo, like, keep it what it is, and then we all put our heads together for the next, up until, you know, next year, and come up with the best plan possible.
I have to, just to
Thanks, Kate.
piggyback
I
on what you
I
said.
really liked your idea for a resolution too. I thought that was,
And the board discussed it at the last meeting, exactly what you just said, and the board decided, at least now, in 90 days. What the board needs to discuss, which I guess is your point, whether you're gonna get the information first from Mr. Pettigrew, look at the drafts and get some of the information that we've asked for, or whether you're just gonna say, nothing's gonna change for 2023. But that's what the board can decide. And I'm not, and I, again, just the way I understood it at the last meeting, the board said we're gonna keep everything status quo for 90 days.
Actually 60 days, but
All right, we just,
But
maybe,
we did pass a resolution 5-0.
But I wanna say just for what you were saying too, as far as the legal needs for the MOA for the video surveillance at the Rushmore branch, the taxpayers are now paying double legal fees. When we just say, can we stay the same for 2023, we'll let you know in 90 days, we're gonna keep talking back. They're paying double, and I think the recap very clearly said, if we do not do this mid-year negotiations, the taxpayers save money. But this 90-day back and forth, they're paying double. Just for
We're
these.
gonna pay double. This, if
They
it,
don't need
if
to
it, if
pay
it's
the
gonna go,
lawyers for this.
well, at some point, it has to be discussed and a plan fleshed out. Whether it's happens in 90 days or it happens at the end of the year. You should really be doing your research on what it actually costs to. Does a library one, is she able to do any bookkeeping at all?
I would have to check the civil
Cause
service.
you're gonna have two library
But,
ones.
okay, but Tyler, like, I have worked in other libraries where it functions like that, okay? And I've done payroll, and I know what it's like to work in a library that has a bookkeeper. And the other libraries, they have bookkeepers. That's how you handle it, you know? And a lot of times the contracted employees, so you hire someone to come in and do your bookkeeping for you. You know, so, in terms of payroll, yeah, that's something I could do. I've done it before. I can do payroll, right? And I've gotten quotes to try to figure out how much more that would cost us and everything. Same thing for the bookkeeper. You know, how many hours would we need? You know, how
Well,
much
you
would
know,
that cost?
that's extremely important on finding that out
Yeah.
for us to make a decision,
Mm-hmm.
what it is.
But I think
That was for what, the information, some of the information we were seeking during this resolution,
Right,
correct?
to find out what's the difference gonna be.
But
I
wouldn't
think-
that be when we present our 2024 budget? We wouldn't need Mr. Pettigrew, no offense, to research that and put it in our 2024 budget. So we just save the taxpayers his fees, because we
You
can
could have saved
research
the
that.
taxpayers tons of fees, but let's get on with
Yes,
just
so
if you can come up with the
While she
information.
researches it, we put it in our
Right.
budget that we
But the
finalize in August.
Yeah, and the point is, Tyler, though, regardless of if a bookkeeper costs $5,000 a year or $15,000 a year, that's $5,000 or $15,000 that we didn't need in our budget before. And probably the town budget isn't gonna be decreasing by 5 or 15,000, right? So that's still overlap, you know, so that's just the point. No matter how much it costs, it's gonna cost something, you know, and there's gonna be overlap, so.
And all of this, Tim Finnegan, Town Council, all of the things we're talking about predominantly is hinging on the idea that you might go on your own and become a special district.
Right,
So we might not even be talking about 2024 to begin with.
Oh, we will,
Yeah.
because that
Yeah.
takes, it could be 18 months, 2 years.
So,
Exactly, so it could be 25's budget, it could be 26's
It
budget.
could be, but we're just trying to get through 2023.
Oh,
You guys
absolutely,
budgeted
but
for it, we did not.
That's what I'm saying, so we're talking about a number that might not even matter
Mhm.
for 2 to 5 years, 2 to 4 years.
Probably not, because the thing with something like redistricting is it's not a given, you know, so even if we, you know, even if the decision is made to pursue that and we go down that road, it could be vetoed, it could
You
be
be told no.
you know,
That's
like
what
at
some
any
legislation
point, so, you know, it's really, that, and obviously if we did redistrict, the library would have to take over all of these things. So, I mean, my personal feeling on this is that, you know, it's been working for 30 years, so why change it now unless we have to, you know?
Is there anything, to the best of the lawyer's knowledges, that there is anything that as a town board we are no longer allowed to do?
Not that I'm aware of.
Joe?
Not with respect to the administration, right, the payroll, if you're talking about payroll
Payroll,
administration,
bookkeeping,
it's.
well, they have to figure out their own union stuff, they're gonna be their own thing, that's on them.
Right,
But as far as bookkeeping, payroll, everything that we're talking about right now that's budget
Choice.
material,
It's a choice only.
then why are we gonna spend more money?
building maintenance,
Well,
all
that,
those things, that's all within the town board's
Yeah.
discretion.
I personally don't see spending more money, cause like Sarah said, no matter if it's $1 or $1 million, it's money that we already paid for, and now they have to pay for it too. So it doesn't make sense in my eyes to double dip on the tax cut.
And we're double dipping now.
We are double dipping right now, there's two, and, sorry, that's your profession, I get it,
Yes,
but
sorry.
Lovely.
No offense taken.
I have a quick question. Are there any
What's your name?
Jesus,
Mine's on, this is it, so don't worry.
Alum Library Board, are there any benefits to us making these switches at all? Are there any benefits?
That's what I asked.
depending on what it is, I would see some of it could be more expensive, right? I mean, you're gonna
The
pay more to have 5 employees on a payroll or 100 employees, or,
And I'm gonna
I'm
speak-
just wondering why it was just so much contention between the 90 days and the end of the year if there's no benefit to it.
And sometimes too, and I think this might be, I don't know the history of it, but I think it might be part of the reason why municipal libraries are able to like kind of wrap themselves in with the town with this a little bit, is that, you know, libraries a lot of times a much smaller organization, and the more people you have, the more money, you know, your organization has, like, that's more buying power, and so you can negotiate better prices for things, and so, you know, like for us, like what we can negotiate is not as good, you know, like comparison than what the town can negotiate, because you all have more money, more staff, more resources than we do.
I think the,
So- I'm sorry, Lon, so if the library chooses to follow through with the special district though,
Right.
and you're saying, what's the, I don't think there would be
No,
discussion on that.
I get that.
There's no
I'm
choice.
saying, I understand within 90
Right.
days that we would need to have a plan for 2024. But if there's no special district, then we don't.
well, it doesn't sound like it's 2024 if there is no special district. You know, like, if we're saying, and that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around right now, if we're telling them to have a plan for 90 days for 2024, but there's no special district in 2024, why are they budgeting for things that they don't need to buy?
What I was
You know what I mean?
thinking was if,
Well, we're basing what,
Well,
decision
that-
what happened with the decision that was rendered back down from the state.
But that's why I just asked, are we under any legal requirement to have, are they under any legal requirement to have to do those things? Or do we have to push those things to them? If there's no requirement for us to do it, I mean, she brings up an excellent point, whether it's $1 or not, it's duplicated services. Cause she's, I'm sure right that we're not gonna get rid of a bookkeeper.
How is it duplicate?
are we gonna fire whoever was doing the library stuff because they need to get somebody to do that stuff? Or are we gonna take hours away from whoever was doing the library's work?
The bookkeeper.
Bookkeeping, payroll,
Yeah.
are we gonna get rid of hours for them?
We have a woman that works for us for a number of years that does payroll.
Absolutely, if she no longer does the library's payroll, are we gonna fire her or cut her hours down? No?
No.
She works, she does everyone's
double.
payroll.
Exactly, so now they're gonna have to hire someone to do payroll, and she's gonna get the same amount of hours to do payroll.
Or it would be done right now by Sarah. Who's-
Okay,
who's
so
capable of
payroll's
doing
fine,
it,
but the
who could do
bookkeeping,
it.
the bookkeeping, no. They'll have to hire a full-time bookkeeper, and whoever's doing our their bookkeeping now will not lose hours or pay,
Why would it have to be a full-time?
even part-time, whatever hours they're paying.
Even if it's 5 hours a week.
I understand, but you're saying they would have to hire, but
We're not gonna cut whoever's doing the bookkeeping now.
I don't see where it would be duplicate, but I understand
Well,
what you're saying. I
I'm
understand
explaining
your
to you.
point. Yeah, I know you
If
are.
there's
I'm here.
5 hours a week that's getting done by the town's bookkeeper for the libraries, and now the library has to hire somebody brand new to do 5 hours a week, and we're not cutting her hours, somebody's doing 5 hours of not library work and getting paid for it, and somebody's now doing new 5 hours of library work and getting paid for it. So we're duplicating
It's double
services.
Double dipping.
Because she's not losing hours, she's not getting 5 hours cut from her weekly pay, or 5 hours, doing 35 hours a week. She's still doing 40, or she or he is doing 40 hours, and this person's doing 5. So we're duplicating services. On payroll, bookkeeping, maintenance, whatever the case is, whatever they have to hire is now extra, because we're not getting rid of people
For cutting.
that were doing their work. So, if there's no
It's been a
reason-
30-year
Like
working
I said, if there's no
relationship.
benefit.
Yeah.
I don't see a benefit to it, I don't, because no matter what way you spin it, the taxpayer's gonna pay more money for nothing. Nothing, because there's not even a guarantee that you guys are gonna be a special district. Really, you
Not in
haven't even,
2024, yeah.
really, you haven't even told us to our face, or even out hearsay, that you're gonna be. It was
We
just kind of
haven't even
assumed.
voted
Because we
to
don't know
do
yet.
it.
Yeah,
We
I-
actually haven't even, well, since our
But
last
I'm sorry, to
meeting-
my point, and it's been said, if you guys do become a special district, you are making it very clear that it is gonna cost the taxpayer a hell of a lot more money, so I just wanna put that out on both
Yeah,
sides.
well, one thing to point out about the special district though is that that would kind of change a number of things. So it wouldn't just change like in terms of budgeting that like now we'd have to take care of those things too. It would allow us to do certain things as well, like eliminate any double taxed areas that we have right now, which do exist in Woodbury with the Woodbury and Cornwall Library. So like, it would benefit the taxpayer in that way, in that, and that's just one example.
It would cost the taxpayers that live in Monroe Woodbury School District more money,
Yes,
which
it
is the
would.
bigger area of
Yeah,
Monroe
yeah.
Woodbury.
But we could, basically with a special district is you could redraw the lines, right? So if there were any areas that didn't have, library services, right, any people who didn't have it, or people who right now are paying for 2, which we have people who are paying for 2 right
Ellie-
now.
Ellie's paying.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So,
My
Yeah,
concern,
so,
I made this known
you know,
last meeting, and it's coming from you guys, but I'm just voicing the way I feel about it. Going that route, yes, could benefit you, but after the second year could very well hurt you if the taxpayer says, we don't want your budget.
Well,
yeah.
Not,
the budget will always revert back to the
To the
original.
original.
well, that's just it though, but that's,
But if
so,
that can't support services that we're planning,
well, the
then-
first budget that we would request, the instruction says do not shortchange yourself, because that is the only budget you're guaranteed. But I know you said there'd be a lot more, we are extremely underfunded as a library.
Mm.
So if we actually had for the last 5 years, just 2% every year, we'd be at over $800,000. But we got a 20% cut over 2 years. So we are extremely underfunded. So I know that you would say it would cost them more, but if you speak to our library system, we are so underfunded
that-
for our area.
just for clarification, because I wasn't on the board then, but
Yes.
was that 20% cut,
It was over 2 years.
okay, so 10 a year we'll say, not used, or was it pulled from your reserve?
How would you?
It was pulled from our fund balance, the difference.
So it wasn't really lost services.
Well, I think what concerned us about that is like, you know, once you cut back the tax levy, then like, you know, increasing it is the hard
To
part,
never
right?
recover
Oh,
it.
So,
absolutely.
yeah,
But
so
so it
like,
wasn't lost per se, it just wasn't, it was, and I can see why it was done. It was done potentially out of spite, but the money was there for you.
However, that
It just-
money
it
wasn't-
legally cannot be
Brought back.
requested. No. They actually legally, state comptroller said they cannot ask you to offset it. They can't say, you have so much money, we're gonna give you less tax levy.
Mhm.
They can't use our fund balance as a decision maker.
Mhm.
That actually is against, and it's not my, that's the state comptroller, you can look it up.
but I think also for us too, the concern was about the severity of the cut, because, you know, like supplementing a little bit, you know, from the fund balance wasn't the concern, it was
Mhm.
the amount that we were being asked to supplement, because, you know, that money is finite, and, you know, it's, like, our concern was like, okay, well, if we're being cut 20%, like, and then we can only increase by 2% every year at a certain point, that fund balance is gonna be gone, and what do we do?
We're
You
over
know,
100,000
so that,
dollars.
that was the concern there, is just the plan for the future.
So it wouldn't really be,
But
good.
what is the plan for the future?
Well, that's the thing, is like,
'Cause
you're not,
there's-
we couldn't decide the tax levy since it was set by the town board at the time. We didn't know what the plan was, we didn't know, like, well, is it that you want, you know, you want us to supplement, you know, $100,000 this year and next year, and then the following year will only be 50? We didn't know, every year it was a surprise, you know, so that's kind of why we were so worried about it, because we were like, how long is this gonna go on?
No,
We
I
don't-
just,
You know?
listen,
But-
I'm trying to just kinda like stick to a little bit of this agenda here, you know, and I'm still not hearing what we wanna do moving forward, like, do you have plans in the future? Because actually during that class that I was at, there's step-by-step, month-by-month process here of what you need to do
You mean for
If you-
redistricting you're talking about?
for becoming your own special
The
district
special
library.
district, okay.
With allowing the,
Yes,
That's one thing. but
Yeah.
I think what you were talking about is
there's the 414 vote, right?
yeah.
that's
Two different things.
That's two different things?
That's two different
Okay.
things.
But
So
can I
when
say
we-
something, Brandon, and actually you, just so you know, when we had our last work session, first week of February, we haven't had a board meeting yet. You guys meet twice a month, we actually haven't met yet as a board. Tonight will be the first one since our last work session, so I know you guys said we haven't heard. We actually haven't sat down as a board to discuss what our other options are, or, you know, going forward. So it's not that we're kind of keeping you in the dark, we truly haven't had a board meeting
Okay.
yet to discuss.
But you're asking, Tim, just so, because I was looking at it also, I dug it up for that information, and they, because they've been stating since I became town supervisor, I remember back, like they said, in January, February, I remember one of your first emails was that you were so underfunded and that you were cut a certain percentage. Their budget last year was 619, so it was 2% increase we gave them to bring them to 636. But they were told last year at 619 they could use fund balance by
Yeah.
the previous supervisor,
And-
and that
yes.
brought your fund balance up to 787,000.
You can't request.
Right,
any
and-
of that,
So-
that's the problem.
Well, see, here's the thing, let me just finish, okay, and then you can correct me. Sure, so it was a $619,000 tax levy. They appropriated, to bring it up to 787,000. The end of this past year, after everything was said and done, the amount that was spent of the 787 was 663, so actually the unspent amount was over 123,000. Of that 123,000, that goes back into their fund balance, which at this particular time, their fund balance is at, do you wanna say what your fund balance is at this time, or you don't have it right
I
now?
don't have the numbers in front of me now. Do you have it?
I don't have those exact numbers, I believe it to be over $500,000.
Okay.
600, is it over 600,000 or 500,000?
It looks like you have,
Yeah.
you have 637 written
Yeah.
on your sheet. But I just wanted to point out about last year and the leftover money. As you all remember, since, you know, December of 2021, we were looking to hire somebody, and staffing is the largest expense. So, yes, we had money left over, we also didn't have a staff person for the entire year. So that's payroll for that staff person, that's, you know, social security, any, you know, retirement, all of those things that person.
$10,000 program budget.
And yeah, and it was a programmer, and part of their job is to spend the budget by putting on programs. So, you know, we didn't have as many programs because of that, and so all that money was left in the budget because we didn't have that staff person. So
That programmer though was, that you didn't replace, was a part-time librarian.
yes, and
assistant.
that's what we had budgeted for. So that's a
Library
29 hours a week for 52 weeks for a whole year. So that was the majority of that chunk of money, was because of that missing staff person.
But I do know that there was over $50,000 of unpaid salary.
Yeah, so that would be, the majority of that would have been
For
the,
part-time,
Mhm.
29 hours a week, 51,000.
Also,
well,
the
it
web
wouldn't have
designer.
been that much because we also did have another staff person leave with a few months left in the year, so that would include that budget. Also, we have a lot of staff that are part-time, so they don't get very much PTO time, and when they take time off, a lot of times that means that it has to be unpaid. So, you know,
They didn't work, right, they didn't work their hours that they could possibly have worked. Some get hired for 20, 25, 29, and they don't work all their hours based on their full-time employment elsewhere. So
right,
What about availability?
well, I
Availability.
hire people for a certain number of shifts, and so that's what they work, is the shifts that they're hired to work.
Right,
So typically, when I take a job and you tell me it's 40 hours a week, that's how many hours I'm working. Okay, so you should be working the hours that is required in your job description.
Right, absolutely, but like, you know, for example, if you have like a part-time staff person who works like, you know, say Thursday night and Saturday,
Mhm.
you know, and they have like a, you know, family event on a Saturday and they can't work, right? They find someone else to cover for them, or, you know, and then they can't work, you know, so then they don't get paid for that day that they didn't work, you know, so with part-time, you know,
I keep
that's,
saying,
it's more
as a
common.
res employee, when I worked last year, somebody left, nobody asked me to work more hours, they hired somebody else. I could have worked more hours, they could have asked me to work more hours, but they didn't, they just hired somebody else to work hours. So, it's, I guess, just a choice.
okay. So listen, I think this was very productive. I think we have enough information here that we received tonight that we can put together and have this information, everyone that wants to submit their responses to this, and get it back to us so we can formulate it, put it all together, right? 90 days.
When do you have your meeting
Right now,
tonight?
we're about to go.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
right
Few
after
minutes.
this.
And then
So,
But I
our
think
next work
we-
session, we should have a clear,
Brandon, excuse me, before you, I'll let you finish. Just let Joe ask his one question.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to, well, I already did, so, I didn't mean to, but I guess I already did, right? I think, yeah, I know.
He does.
I feel very.
He talks very low.
At the last meeting, at the last town board meeting, did we set a date for March 16th?
Yes, we do.
16.
At 5
For-
o'clock.
We
For
offer,
another,
I believe we offer 2 dates.
Yeah.
alright.
I thought we said we were
Oh,
doing
just to cut to the chase, do we wanna set March 16th as another
No,
meeting?
I would like to.
But we need an email, because actually, I heard it at the meeting, but we didn't receive any email requesting. I just mentioned it because I said, I think they wanna have a work session with us. So we received nothing requesting a work session, no agenda, we didn't receive anything. So that's a little bit difficult to come to. Because I didn't see this until I sat down.
I believe
That
there
was
was
the
2
last
work sessions scheduled at the last one.
We at the town board, at the meeting, we said we would schedule one for the second.
We'll make sure an email gets out, I mean, you were here.
No, that's what I said, I heard it at the meeting,
Okay.
but we
Yeah.
didn't,
But we'll make sure that something.
yeah, but we didn't receive
I thought
anything
we
as a
offered
board.
2 dates. To me, there's nothing here that's gonna be solved in a week, or 2 weeks, that we need to have another
I think
meeting.
the information is there, we just have to put it together and we'll schedule it for
when,
90 days.
What do we say?
I think that we just continue on, keep working
I think-
together at it, because I think the more time that goes in between, the more, you know, candidates kick down the road, and then we're not coming up with any conclusions, but I feel like getting
it's
together.
kicked all the way down to 2024, so we don't need to bring the attorneys in.
Oh, you just said it's kicked to 2024,
That's what
thank
you
you,
keep
Tyler, for
saying.
agreeing, yay, we got another one. We all heard him.
But I just wanna say, like, I don't think the library board's gonna come forward with anything different than
Than what we already have, yeah.
we would like 2023 to stay the same right to the end, and we can research and budget and
I personally agree with that. I mean,
So do I, and if we can get together and all work together about 2024, okay, let's find out how much it costs to hire somebody to do bookkeeping, whatever, and you guys tell us how much that is, and we figure out how much it's through the town. We can do a comparison and figure out which one's better for the,
We need a real, transparent, realistic, with the real employees and real work hours. And that will come in August with the budget, okay, but in the meantime, we have these other issues that we have to deal with, but
and I think
No.
that's,
I
No,
think there's a
we-
time and place for the
we-
budget.
We need to have some tentative figures so we can decide before the budget what's gonna go on. You need to come up with some figures as to
Mhm.
what would payroll cost or what
Yeah.
Insurance.
these things would cost.
insurance, maintenance, whatever.
So
Well,
that
our
if we do,
insurance-
if we do decide to switch,
Mhm.
then your budget, you can switch. If we decide not to, then we don't. But we don't wanna wait until the budget comes up
Yeah.
and then make a decision. These
our
things
budget
should-
is done in August.
that's why I figure if we work
Yeah,
together, if we
right.
continue to
So
work
we're
together.
talking, well, we're
Well,
talking
the
another
thing is
60
that-
days. We said 90 days, so maybe we can do it in 30 days, but maybe 60 days. So that's
Mhm.
April.
Well, I think too, one thing that might be really good
March
for us to
8th,
discuss in, like as soon as possible would be the completion of the MOA for the security cameras at the Rushmore branch. I mean, I think everyone has a copy of it at this point, so, I was hoping we could discuss it tonight, but maybe if we can plan on discussing it 2 weeks from now, and just really finding out, like, what, does anyone have issues with anything in it? If there are, we
When-
can fix
When
it.
you talk about waste of attorney's money, that MOA
That's
is
a
the
legal
biggest waste
document.
of money.
Why is that?
Because keep changing, just keeps changing. And
I mean, we haven't changed anything for, I think, 5 months.
November, it's been the
Yeah,
same.
so,
Well, that was right, and that's the one that the town board voted twice, not
But did you
Okay.
guys vote that, not to approve it? I
I
think the
didn't
last
think-
we talked,
Yes,
They
they
said
did.
no.
Yes,
We did.
yes, we
Thank
all
you.
did, thank you.
okay, the
Okay.
last time, the
So there's
last
no-
work
so
session.
like I
we
said,
did
And
that.
to be
Because
clear,
that
and to
was
be
a-
clear, the town board directed me and agreed not to approve it, 2 separate occasions. Not in a
Just by the
vote,
last
not in a
work
vote,
session.
not in a vote in public. The town board twice discussed it and twice agreed not to approve it. We had that discussion the last time.
And the last time, they all said they did not, it's on camera.
I know
um,
that's a problem.
yeah.
That's a big problem.
Yes.
I do
But-
want-
So I guess my question is
Vote.
that if it
All
wasn't,
set up.
if everyone voted to not approve it, then,
Mhm.
why is that? So that we can try to fix it?
I started the meeting by asking my board to give me comments in the next 15 days. And I said that I would provide them to Mr. Pettit.
For the MOA,
Well, for a couple things, but yes.
for the MOA and
that's
for
specific.
the IMA,
That's
okay.
specific.
Can I just clarify something, Brandon, just on the part-time employees, and please correct me, our budget does not budget for 29 hours, but they only work 12.
Yeah, that's,
She budgets
yeah,
only what she hired them for.
if someone
So
works-
there is no 29-hour
yeah,
person only working 12 hours. The budget is specific to what they were hired for.
yeah,
There is no extra hours added into the budget.
that is
Unless they
absolutely
don't work
correct.
a day or whatever. like
Yeah,
you said.
unless someone
Yes.
is sick,
If they're
you
sick,
know,
COVID,
and they
So
can't
you
come
might
in.
be hired for 25 hours or 20, whatever it may be,
but
but
that's all that's budgeted.
they're only budgeted to work Wednesday at 5:30 or whatever, you know, well, from 12 to 5 or whatever it might be.
Right.
That's what you're
So,
hiring for.
yeah, so like when I hire people, I give them a schedule and I say, these are the hours we need, right? You know, and say that is 12 hours a week. We need someone 12 hours a week. These are the specific shifts, right? I hire someone for those specific shifts, 12 hours a week, and then in our budget, I put 12 hours a week, this person.
So they're not
Mhm.
29.
So it's,
okay.
it's exact,
Our
yeah.
budget is
So
like that
maybe
every year.
it's according to civil service, they could work up to 29, but I don't budget for them to work 29. I budget for them to work 12.
Okay,
Yeah.
And if they work 12 hours, they that's what's budgeted. If they
Okay.
make it in 1 week, they'll say, I can't, I have my full-time job, I'm only gonna be able to work 8 this week, or I'm
Gotcha.
gonna be able to work 5. But they're budgeted,
COVID,
they're covered,
family member
right,
sick, car
they're
accident,
part-time, they,
it's,
they're
Okay.
budgeted for 12,
Alright,
right.
good?
Yeah.
6:19.
All right. Well, thank you very much,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Well, thanks.